notice it's the 4-level difficulty, but that's just simply because the stone is a little harder to find. Have you guys come across this one at all? Okay. Here's a 6-pack. No, it's right on a 6-pack. It's just a bunch of questions. So it's, I'm not sure what the title is other than that the LBB is the Lonely Boys. And that happens to be a singing group someplace, and there's questions about them. So it's just a matter of getting on the internet and doing your research. There were 2 of these, silent signals 1 and 2. The title helps, but once you see the puzzle, you know immediately what you're working with. Okay, it's naval flags, numbering 1, 2, 3, etc. Okay, here's an example of a 6-pack where you had to go around and find 6 other caches, and it would give you numbers, and then you could find this one. The only reason this is rated fairly difficult is because they're scattered out all over the place. Asteroids in Green Bay, Miata, 6 Bricks, Dink Tank, Crazy Brothers, Axeman. Well, I guess these are all in the Appleton area. There was another one where you had to go to like Eau Claire, Milwaukee, Manitowoc. You had to go all over the state to find the different ones. Sudoku. I think this one is archived, but again, it's an example of a fairly easy one. And if you want to cheat, the cell phones now have Sudoku solvers. You just take a picture and it gives you the answer. Very quick and easy. This is the basic Sudokus. The next level up is something that looks like this. This is Zoe Brother up in Appleton. He's got a whole bunch of Sudokus. And this comment down here was because he was criticized because a couple of the first ones he put out had multiple answers. You could do several different ways of solving it. And he didn't know that because he didn't solve them. So it's a matter of like, okay, now you know. I don't have an example of a Ken, but I got this one. Where these are greater than or lesser than symbols. And so this number has to be greater than or whatever. It's beyond me. So, but anyways, it's a variation that you'll see around. The man that did these is a Japanese gentleman, and he's done the Sudokus, the Ken-Kens. He's got like 10 or 12 different types of puzzles that are available. There was a website, I can't find where I did with it, so I don't know who he is. Oh, I do see a Ken coming up here. This is one that was up in Superior, and I had a, like, okay, 9 men out. What are all these things? It's like, it looks like a Sudoku. Yeah, it took me for, I'm not a baseball person, so it's like, oh, okay, now I got it. I ended up changing all of the letters to numbers so I could work them. Because it was just totally confusing. Okay, the Japanese gentleman is Tatsuya Miyamoto. And this is a Ken. Let's see once. This block right here are 2 numbers, and they have, when you subtract the 2 numbers, you gotta get -2, I think, I don't know. So it's, besides getting the regular numbers for the Sudoku, all these highlighted blocks have to add up to these numbers. So like, this one up here, when you multiply these, you have to get that 26,000 or 22,000 number. Otherwise, you don't have the right digits. And in the purple are the actual numbers you're looking for. This one is from, I don't know, I forgot where it's from. This is an Easter egg. It's got this nice little home, and it's like, okay, what are you gonna do with it? The first thing I do when I see a new puzzle, I'll cut and paste, click it and drag the thing down and highlight the whole cache page in blue to see what shows up. And when you do that, you get, ooh, very faint. Here are the numbers. North, 133, whatever it is. Yeah, 33 something. They're written down the side here. They're in gray, they're very faint, but again, this is an example of an Easter egg. All right, and again, it's because it's basically white print on white background. It doesn't show up until you highlight it in blue or print it. Here's one of the cut and paste, and it's, well, this one's lost by 7. I think it was somebody else. I don't know if this one still exists. This is actually from a primary school site where you have all different types of games. And this is a cut and paste. You just cut these things up and you start playing around to get the words. You don't have to fill in the spaces. These spaces means it's a blank. So like, this is a space, so that's the end of a letter, it's the beginning of a word, or end of a word, beginning of a word. There's a space here, and so on. It's fairly simple, but it just may take you time. Okay, this is an example of my own that I mentioned, they're parks. And what I said was, okay, there's a whole bunch of words in here, you gotta find them and figure out what they are. And then you have to go on beyond one more, since once you find the word, A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, etc. And that's where that other cheat sheet that I got copies of them floating all over the place. It's real quick to just like run down the line and figure out what they are. Word scramble. This is an example too where local knowledge would help because it's based upon Appleton and it's something you'll find in Appleton. Some of them you'll find other places. It's just a matter of figuring out what are they. And then you have to figure out what the numbers mean. So like, well, let's see if I can figure out which one is which. I can't remember anymore. One of them is Olive Garden scrambled up. It's like favorite restaurants. So it's Olive Garden, and then you gotta find out what the address is, and take the first and fourth digit or whatever is involved. Again, you can see here, puzzles can be based upon almost anything. Some people complain they got inside my head to figure out what I'm doing, but that's not really true. This is one from this area that I believe is now archived, but it's telling you the size of the garden, and you have to figure out proportions. It's something to do with math, but I just sat down and started drawing squares until I came up with the answer. But again, it's something a little different. I think this one's still active and it's Racine. Roman eyeballs tells you almost everything you need to know, right? Anybody know what the coordinates are? Can't read it. I've actually come across some people, younger people, that don't know what Roman numerals are. Jacob, you know what Roman numerals are? Okay. Well, some people don't. Jeff Thorson. it tells you just about everything you need to know. Now, how do you figure out what the 12 millionth digit of pi is? There's calculators online. I first came across this, there's a guy in Minneapolis that had like 3 or 4 different pi puzzles, and he had a link to them, so I bookmarked it. And there's a search function in there someplace, so when you get to this digit, starting from here, it will give you the coordinates you need for the north, and then the same for the west. And it's just amazing that you come up with those, but then again, pi's got so many digits and they're all just happen to be random. Okay, can anybody tell me what's about here? I need to zoom in a little. I've showed it to you before. Can't read it, okay. It's that line right there, and it's the words in other languages. So you just have to start Googling all these things and figure them out. However, I made it a little more difficult by I collapsed everything into one big long line and then separated it into digits of 5, so you have to figure out how long is the actual word. And then as people were finding it and having problems, I started giving hints. Wow.
Never had a start of that one, Marc.
This is one Tammy from Echo Ranger sent me some years ago. They were going down to Indianapolis someplace and said, "Can you figure out this puzzle for me?" I said, "Yeah, you gotta see, what do you call it? As you go, just look at it." Anybody got an idea? The numbers are right there in front of you. It's not an Easter egg, no. Well, it's a modification of an Easter egg. That's a good one. The numbers are written right here. The problem is, you gotta download it into a photo editor and start zooming in, and zoom in, and zoom in, and zoom in, and then eventually they'll show up. Okay, so and I have no idea how to figure this out. When she sent it to me, I looked at it and said, "Oh, like just zoom in." Like, okay. Here's an example of the maze. It's Alex's maze, tie-dye sky kid. See what the quality is. It's just, when you print it out, it's very hard. And I've seen several mazes and they're all the same way because they're so big. That's just the way it is. There are challenges, and then there are those stupid challenges out there. They are not the new revised virtuals that Geocaching came out with, which I think absolutely suck and all. The real challenges are puzzles, and they require